I'm Rebecca Weiss, and I'm here with Lori Mintz, and I'm going to talk with Lori about some questions that we think might come up for owners of rental properties and other multifamily housing complexes after Hurricane Ida. So, Lori, if I own rental property and it was damaged, how might insurance be able to help me?
Well, the first thing that your policy will do is to step in and provide coverage for the actual physical damage that you sustained at your property. The policy will have various conditions that may limit that coverage, but you will, in all likelihood, subject to deductibles and so on, get coverage to repair the damage. The policy will also step in to provide assistance for lost rental income, and again, that's subject to various terms and limitations. But the lost rental income is basically the rents that you lose while your property is being repaired.
Okay, so you said subject to maybe some exclusions. What kind of exclusions might my insurance policy contain?
Well, the policy will have a general form, and that form says that you get coverage for physical damage to your property and lost business income, but many insurance companies add exclusions to those policies, and the exclusions could be, for example, for mold damage, or you could have an exclusion for wind-driven rain, or perhaps you have an exclusion for a named storm, and that exclusion might either preclude coverage altogether or it might impose a higher deductible.
Okay, so you said something about subject to a deductible. What's a deductible?
Well, most people are familiar with deductibles. Say on an auto policy, you might have a deductible of, say, $500. On a multifamily commercial property policy, there may also be a general deductible that's a flat amount. But for windstorms, insurance companies often impose a percentage deductible, and that'll be a percentage of the insured value of your property. So it might be 2% or 5%, and that'll be calculated based on the total insured value of your property or on a building-by-building basis.
Okay, so that's good to know. So it's a little bit different for windstorms.
In most policies, it is.
Okay. So I've been thinking about something else, which is that a lot of rental complexes have tenants with year-long leases, and it may take some time for those damaged rental properties to be repaired. And what if those tenants with year-long leases want to break their leases and not come back because it just took too long to repair the damage? What happens then?
Well, under most commercial property policies, you have two types of lost business income. First, there's the business income that gets paid to you for the period of restoration, and that's the amount of time it takes you to actually repair your property, or the amount of time it should take a reasonable person to repair their property. But then the policy likely also has an extended business income provision. And the extended business income will compensate you for, say, an extra 30 days or 60 days, the amount of time it takes you to actually market and lease up the property again after the repairs are complete.
Okay. What if I have tenants who aren't wanting to move back even if their apartment wasn't damaged, just say because, schools are closed or their job moved elsewhere? Do I get coverage for those lost rents?
Probably not. I mean, the lost business income is almost always tied to having sustained actual physical damage to the property that's insured. There are certain civil authority coverages that you should certainly look at in your policy to see whether they might be triggered for a short period of time during, say, the evacuation, but in all likelihood, you're not going to receive coverage if your units aren't damaged.
Okay, so, in my area, there was damage to a lot of apartment complexes. And so those that don't have damage are able to charge much higher rental rates now than they were before the storm. When I'm calculating my lost business income, do I get to consider those higher rates that I would be able to charge, or is it tied to the rent that I was charging before the storm?
In all likelihood, your loss will be calculated with reference to the rents that you were charging immediately before the loss. The policies say that you should get the amount of money you would have sustained but for the physical damage. And so some policyholders might argue that, well, if my unit hadn't been damaged, I'd be able to charge these higher post-storm rents. But the policies contain a provision that says that you're not allowed to benefit from favorable business conditions that exist as a result of the same cause of loss that caused your damage. So under those provisions, as long as the increased rents you're talking about are due to the same loss that caused your physical loss, you won't be able to collect the higher amounts.
Okay, so my tenant's property was damaged and they're asking me to pay for it. Is that something that my insurance is going to cover?
You have to look at your policy. Generally speaking, tenants should have purchase their own renter's insurance to cover their own personal belongings that are inside of the apartment. But some policies will include small side coverages for tenant property, and so it's something to look at, but I wouldn't count on it.
Okay. So what do I need to do to make sure that I'm able to get as much as possible from my insurance company?
Well, of course, you need to report the loss as soon as possible if you haven't already and get an adjuster assigned to you. You need to take photographs, you need to save business records and collect all of your financial statements, rent rolls, all of the records that will allow you to establish the income that you've actually lost because of the damage to your property. And then you need to work with your adjuster to review the damage before you start repairs, but you shouldn't accept what the adjuster tells you is the amount of your loss. You should certainly get your own estimates and your own evaluation of what it's going to take to put your property back to the condition it was in before.
Great, thank you, Lori, that's so helpful.